You did a great job, but I want to think it over. Every salesperson has heard that dreaded phrase of, I want to think it over. And it is one of the worst responses that we can receive from a prospect. Because, of course, it's not a yes, but it's also not a no. And so what tends to happen is that a lot of these I want to think it over sales situations tend to ultimately fall apart. They end up in that never land of sales situations, and we never get full closure. And this can be really frustrating. And what's amazing is that it's also really avoidable. We can both avoid hearing that phrase in the first place, and then if we actually do hear it, we can use the information that we get from them to make sure that we hold that sale together. In this video, I'm going to show you how to deal with I want to think it over. Check it out. Number one, avoid this in the first place with value. When a customer says to you, I want to think it over, in many cases, what they're really saying is, I haven't seen enough value from this conversation to be confident to move forward right now. And so, of course, we can deal with that phrase of, I want to think it over once we hear it. But the most important part of the sale is to actually avoid hearing it in the first place. Avoidance is more effective than actually handling that objection. So when you are in the sales situation, you want to be sure to use a sales process that demonstrates real value by having a thorough discovery conversation, understanding exactly what are the biggest challenges that the customer is facing around your area of expertise, and then making sure that you're getting all of that information on the table and that you understand the costs of those challenges that the customer is facing. Once you have that, now you have real value to actually present to. So that way at the end of the sale, they're much less likely to say, let me think about it. Number two, avoid this by asking about decision-making up front. One of the biggest mistakes that many salespeople make is that they don't discuss the decision-making process of the prospect early on in the sales conversation. So when they go for the close, they're caught completely off guard by some additional steps that the prospect wants to make. We can avoid many I want to think it overs simply by having a thorough decision-making conversation earlier on in the sales process, well before we actually give the presentation and way before we go for the close. So having that decision-making conversation where we're simply trying to understand what's their decision-making process for figuring all of this out. Once we have that, now early on, we can navigate what are some of those steps so that way we can avoid this I want to think it over situation that hits us over the head like a 2x4 at the close of the sale. Number three, don't react, pause. So let's say you did a strong job up front and you created lots of value and you discussed the decision-making process, but they still say they want to think it over. Don't react. Instead, slow it down. What the data shows is that many bottom and average performing reps react to objections like this with long, aggressive monologues, and they react right away. And so they keep on talking and talking rather than slowing down the situation. Top performing reps take a pause. In fact, the data shows around 4 seconds when you hear an objection like this. So you hear, I want to think it over. Slow the interaction down. Don't react emotionally. Instead, slow the conversation down. Don't be thrown off by it, but instead make it part of the conversation. First step here is to pause. Number four, acknowledge with a softener. Now, when we hear an objection like, I want to think it over, the prospect is expecting us to push back. They've been in sales situations enough. They have bought enough times to know that when they tell a salesperson, I want to think it over, they're likely to enter into some kind of a confrontation. And so what we want to do is actually flip that entire expected interaction on its head. And so the first thing we do after the pause is we want to acknowledge what they said with what we call a softener, or basically a compliment, something that just simply acknowledges that what they've just said is not unreasonable and that it's okay. This is going to disarm them a lot. And I know a lot of salespeople think that, hey, I shouldn't say that what they said is good because what they said is bad. But the reality is that this is the only way that you can truly disarm the prospect. So you might say something like, totally fair, or totally makes sense, or no problem at all. Right? It's just a little softening statement that's going to now allow us to dig into this last piece by truly disarming the prospect and making them feel okay about what they just said. Number 5, clarify their why. We want to understand why they want to think it over. Again, most salespeople are going to push back on think it overs with discounted pricing, or they're going to say something really salesy and cheesy like, well, I can only hold the pricing for today, or I can only hold the pricing for the next few days, right? Prospects see right through that stuff. That is complete junk, and it's going to hurt your sale. Instead of pushing back and trying to push them to close, first understand why they want to think it over in the first place. This sounds so basic, but it's actually profound and brilliant because most sales reps aren't doing it. So you pause, you soften, and then you're going to clarify their why to understand why they said it. So it might sound something like this after the pause. That totally makes sense. Can you help me understand why you say that? Or another way of saying it would be, totally fair. Help me understand what are going to be your next steps in figuring out whether this is a fit or not. Now you've taken all the pressure off them. They don't feel like they're in a confrontational situation. Now you give them an opportunity to explain why they want to think it over. And more importantly, you're going to get some clarity into what are their next steps. If you haven't already talked about this, which you should have, but let's just pretend maybe you missed something. Now you can get more clarity, and this is where you want to dig. You don't want to immediately come up with some resolution for the objection. You really want to ask a number of follow-up questions here to really understand what are those next steps? What are their concerns? Maybe there is a concern or a worry that they have about moving forward. You want to get that on the table and really isolate those. And then you can either solve that concern in this conversation, or you can at least hold the sale together with some clear next steps. So there is how to deal with I want to think it over. And if you enjoyed this video, I have an awesome free training on the data-driven approach to help you crush your sales goals. Just click right here to get registered instantly. Seriously, just click right here. This is an in-depth training that will help you close more sales at higher prices, all while generating more meetings. Also, if you got some value, please like this video below on YouTube and be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking my face that should be right about here to get access to a new video just like this one each week.